Hey, so I made a whole lot of videos about the really glamorous side, I guess, of bee wrangling, which is the actual handling of bees. Um, there's a lot of other stuff involved with this, though, that isn't quite as interesting. And so if you're not interested in how to light a smoker really well so that it stays smoking, this is probably not the video for you. I wish someone had shown me this particular skill, though, because I gotta be honest, I suck at this. And hopefully this this tip that I picked up from some other places, it's been working for me really well so far, will help some other folks. So here we go, lighting a smoker. Okay, so first of all, most smokers are pretty similar. This is a fairly cheap model. I can't remember who makes it. One, I didn't know until I'd used it 5 or 6 times that it actually has a grate in the bottom. The grate was, I don't know if you can see that or not. The grate was in there upside down and was just this kind of piece of metal in the bottom. I knocked it out, and it has legs that can be folded out. And so it actually sits above the air intake, which is this part right here. When you depress the bellows, there's no tube between here, but there's a hole right here in the bellows that blows air directly into this intake. And you can see now there's all this ash and dust floating out. But that creates that nice airspace in the bottom that you need so that can actually heat up. What you're going to use is coals. So what I used at first, and it always seemed to work really well the first few times, and then it just stopped working for some reason. I just balled up, this is a grocery bag, paper grocery bag. I just balled one of these up really tight, light the bottom of it, stuff it in there really quick. And the first couple of times I did the smoker, that worked great. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of problems with airflow with something like that, so it doesn't really stay burning very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of this with the little twisted, I think that's paper itself, the handle here. Just a small bit, crumple that up kind of loosely, and stick that in the bottom. Make sure it kind of covers the whole bottom. This is a stinky process. You're going to end up smelling like ash and smoke. There's really no way around it. I'm sure there probably are ways around it, but I don't know any. And then the rest of this is, it's kind of like lighting a campfire, but on a much smaller scale. So you want little tiny twigs. See how small these are? These are less than an eighth of an inch wide, a lot of them. And I'm going to break these into little tiny pieces. Make sure they're really dry. Drop these in here on top of the paper. Get a few of these in there first. Then I'm going to take my fancy dancy lighter. Here we go. Kind of a fireplace lighter. A lot of people have really fancy butane torches, and that's great if you can afford that kind of stuff. I probably will eventually, but right now I'm trying to keep this as cheap as I can. Stick that in there and light the paper. Make sure the paper's going really well. The paper, as you know, will quickly light these smaller twigs. And then, just like you would if you were doing a campfire, start out the little tiny twigs. This is kind of not dry enough, I think. It's not breaking very well. Anyway, it'll probably still burn well enough. Get that in there. So the trick here is you're going to get a really good fire going, some good coals. And then you're going to damp that down with the paper. You're going to stuff that paper in the top to kind of kill the flames. And you want that paper to smolder, so it creates a lot of smoke without a lot of flame. But in order to keep that process going, you got to have a good fire going first. This is something I didn't know, and I kind of skated around the internet to find some information on how to do this, and I'm trying to pass that along now. So, work the bellows a bit, get those flames going, get that paper burning well. You see right now there's flames coming out of there. I was doing this yesterday, and I've singed so much hair off my arms, it was ridiculous. Not yesterday, the day before, I guess. And what I'm doing, because I'm lucky enough to live where there's an awful lot of tree dreck around, I just walk around the yard and pick up a bunch of little twigs and branches. I'm not going to put anything in here any bigger than maybe at the most as big around as my pinky, and then not a whole lot of really large pieces of wood here. I'm looking for small stuff. So I want it to burn well. I'm also not looking to actually have a campfire, just something that will continue to provide coals that will keep that paper smoking. When I do this right, my smoker will stay smoking for about an hour and a half. And these are pretty mellow bees, but like the other day when I got stung, I would have really not liked to have had a not good smoker going, because one of the best things you can do if you do get stung is to immediately one, remove the stinger, and then two, I did it right that time, two, smoke the area where you got stung. So put a bunch of smoke on that area, because of course the biggest way that bees communicate with each other besides sound is pheromones. They run off of scent cues, and when a bee stings you, that sends up I still got buds on it, sends up a signal to all the other bees that there's danger, and they get a little agitated, and that proved to be true the other day. I got stung, and the other bees got really pissed off. They calmed down pretty quickly, but for a minute they were pretty angry. The sting itself wasn't too bad. Really intense pain for about 10 to 15 seconds, and it subsided really quickly. So I would continue to work without gloves because that wasn't so bad, but for whatever reason, I've never had a problem with stings before in my life, but this sting, I don't know if you can see how swollen my hand still is. This is 2 days later. The actual sting happened right about here, and I was swollen and painful for most of the rest of that evening. Turns out I have no tolerance for Benadryl. I'm a total Benadryl lightweight, and it just knocked me right out, and I couldn't function. So none of that is worth getting stung over. So I have to figure out some other way to have good dexterity and yet still have gloves on, protect myself from stings. So for now, continue to use my beekeeping gloves, which are pretty thick and unwieldy. So now I got really good flames going there. I'm confident that'll keep going. Let's see how that's just columns of flame there. I'm going to stuff the rest of this paper in here. A small piece there. I'll start to kind of dampen it up. I'll still going. I'm going to take a big, huge clump here, the rest of the bag. Really wind that up tight. And stuff that in there. Sometimes I will use my hive tool to help get that really stuffed in there without getting my fingers in there. It's okay if it kind of comes up above the top a bit, because the top will cover that. See, that's a lot of smoke still coming out of there. Put your nice little cone on there. Just usually connected, but that's broken. I'm not the best smoker. See, got nice. Oh, that's still pretty hot. I'll cool off a bit. As that paper damps down the fire, this is pretty impressive right now. Look at that. Big old smoke machine. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. That's a lot of smoke. Anyway, all my clothes smell like this now. It's going to be my summer, and hopefully this helped you all out a bit. Like I said, it's not a skill that I thought I'd have to learn. It seemed like it would be a pretty easy thing to figure out, but it took an awful lot of trial and error and finally research to figure out how to do this right. You don't want hot smoke. You don't want it blowing sparks or anything for, I would hope, obvious reasons, but I mean, you're trying not to hurt the bees. You're trying to just disrupt their pheromone communication a little bit, throwing a little smoke at them. And again, a little bit of smoke is fine. You don't want to completely smoke them out. If your smoke is too hot or too volatile or whatever, you'll know because they'll yell at you when you throw that smoke on them. If it's wrong, instead of just going lower in the hive and hiding from you, their buzzing takes on a tone, and you'll know that you screwed up. They'll totally tell you. So I don't know if I'll do a second video today or not. We'll see. I'm mostly just following up on the checks I did on Sunday to make sure that my currently queenless hive has a good supersedure cell, And I'm going to take another look at my really healthy hive and make sure that they're, whether they need a super or not this weekend. That's it for me.